Hello there. Welcome to my show, COVID-19 update by Heerak. It's September 15, 2020, Tuesday. And it's my sister's birthday. So happy birthday, Elizabeth. Um, Elizabeth received her Juris Doctor, JD degree, which is a law degree from UCLA. You see UCLA mask. Um, as you know, I was a doctoral student at UCLA in history, um, researching Western civilization history. My major field was history of Christianity from beginnings to 1500. That was my major field. I didn't include Judaism since early Christianity is Jesus, right? So you have to study Judaism and Christianity. And my minor fields included ancient Roman history. So my major field advisors were Dr. Scott Barchi and Dr. Robert Benson. So Dr. Scott Barchi is an expert of early Christianity. He did his PhD at Harvard. And Dr. Robert Benson is an expert of canon law, one of the top 3 experts of canon law. So the other 2 top experts are Edward Peters of University of Pennsylvania and Professor Somerville of Columbia University. And my minor field included ancient Roman uh, history with Professor Ronald Miller, um, and Greek, ancient Greek, with David Blank, who was the chairman of the classics department at that time. And actually, Ronald Miller of ancient history was the chairman of the history department at that time. And my other field included U.S. religious history with Joyce Appleby. And she's a big shot in U.S. history. She went on to like a nationwide, I think Endowment for Humanities or what was it? One of those national organizations. But she's a fairly renowned expert of American history. So yeah, so those are I have 1 major field and 3 minor fields. And I received A minus on my comprehensive exam. That was really hard, you know. Um, yeah, my sister did her JD, Juris Doctor, and she passed the California bar, and she passed, I guess, Pennsylvania bar and New Jersey bar. Um, yeah, and so she did her PhD in history at University of Pennsylvania in medieval history. So she's an expert of Middle Ages, and actually she's an expert of medieval law. So she's investigated concept of criminality in Middle Ages. And so she's an authority on law and so she has her JD. Um, she did her bachelor's and master's together in 4 years at University of Pennsylvania. I went to UCLA for her JD law degree, and then she did her PhD in history in at University of Pennsylvania with Edward Peters. Um, and so yeah, she's really good. She knows her stuff. She taught at Handong University Law School in South Korea as a constitutional law professor. And yeah, she's done a lot of important things. And so she's going to do amazing things throughout her life. You know, yeah, so, happy birthday, Elizabeth. Her favorite cartoon strip is Calvin and Hobbes. I included something from that, my little baby sister. um, yeah, I have some photos from Poland. As you know, in August 2019, about a year ago, I went to Poland to deliver my paper on Jewish Studies at the European Association for Biblical Studies, EABS, in at the University of Warsaw, which is considered the Harvard of Poland. And you know, I went between semesters and during my master's of my master's in clinical nurse leader program at Georgetown University. As you know, I've been doing a master's in clinical nurse leader program for 2 years, full time. And for 2 years, it's 6 semesters because it's fall semester, spring semester, summer semester, fall semester, spring semester, summer semester. So starting from 2018 with my cohort, CNL, Clinical Nurse Leader Cohort 2020 at Georgetown University, we went straight through for 6 semesters full time. So basically, it's like 365 days a year times 2. It's 2 years. Very intense. We all graduated in August 24, 2020 with 75 credits. That's a lot of credits for the master's program. And so, we started out with 34, 9 people kind of left. It's a very difficult program, most, so, and then 25 people are left, and so we graduated. So I just want to say CNL 2020, yay, we graduated on August 24, 2020. 2 years of living hell, but we did it, CNL 2020, Georgetown University. Yeah, it was pure living hell for 2 years. It's no joke how hard it is at Georgetown. Yeah, but it's worth it because we're saving a lot of lives, and it's good saving lives and doing good for humankind. Yeah, so I'm excited at all the things that I've achieved at Georgetown. I graduated with 3.53 GPA, which is an A- GPA. So I guess I'm closer to the top of my class. Yeah, so I'm really excited. I accomplished a lot. I was the first one to pass my NCLEX RN exam. And I am the first one to pass the national certification exam for clinical nurse leader as well in my cohort. So both exams, I was the first one to pass. I'm hoping that everybody will pass NCLEX RN exam. It's very hard, so I'm not sure if everybody will pass. There's COVID-19 that kind of upset the balance of life for everyone. And some people are more affected by that than others. And, you can't study in the library anymore. And some people can only study in the library, and you can't study in the cafes anymore like Starbucks. And some people can only study in the cafes. During COVID-19, students were like locked in within their homes. They had to do everything in their home. They sleep at their home, they eat at their home, they can't even eat at restaurants anymore. They have to entertain themselves at home. They can't go out to a movie theater. They can't go to bowling alley. They can't go dancing during weekends. They can't go to bars during weekends or weeknights. Right? No trivia nights. Yeah, basically everything is just gone. So you have to entertain yourself at home, and then you have to study at home, and then you do everything at home. It's like 24/7, 365, kind of thing. So that upset the balance of life for many people, including some people in my program, Clinical Nurse Leader. Some have admitted it publicly to us, when we're talking as a cohort. Others, they're silent about it, but they may have been impacted seriously by it. Um, so that weighs down as people try to take, exams, right? So NCLEX RN exam is very hard exam, even when all the conditions are there. It is a hard exam. Not everybody passes. But during COVID-19, because there's so much stress there, um, there's normally stress, and then there's this COVID-19 stress, right? And you're like confined. It's like being on a house arrest. Let's be honest here. You have to do everything at your home. It's like being on house arrest. It's like 330 million Americans being on house arrest, right? From March to May, people felt like they were on house arrest. Um, and it's going to be like that again, unfortunately, from now until end of the flu season for 6 months. Um, State by state will be shutting down, and it's going to be like what it was from March to May, but longer. It'll be like 6 months, not 2 months. So we're in for the long haul. And I shared some photos from today when I was walking around. I noticed the temperature was fairly low. It was like 71 degrees. Um, you know, um, at least that's what the billboard said. My car dashboard actually had it at like 60. I don't know how accurate the temperature of my car dash was, but yeah. So it's pretty chilly. I had my blood drawn today, and I was talking to the phlebotomist, and I was saying, how the weather is chilly, and she's like, she loves it, because it's not hot anymore. It's kind of cold. Um, and so she loves it, it's not always fun when you're walking out from car to your work and you're all icky, right? And she's a phlebotomist, so she works every day as a phlebotomist. I'm actually a phlebotomist as well. I'm a nationally certified phlebotomist. So I'm a phlebotomist, uh, certified phlebotomist technician, CPT. So I was certified as a phlebotomist, a while ago, a long time ago. And the exam was really hard, and I got a high score. you know, I studied and I got a high score. So I've been certified for many years. So I was kind of shooting the breeze with the phlebotomist who was drawing my blood. But it was, yeah, its temperature, is getting um, lower. You feel it, and it basically happened with Labor Day because it was really hot before Labor Day. But after Labor Day, temperatures start dropping. It was like shockingly different. So it's kind of bringing home the fact that flu season is coming. Like flu season is coming to your home. And as you feel the cold weather, you realize that the flu season is coming. So hopefully all of you got your flu shot. If you did not get your flu shot, go and get your flu shot. Get your flu shot at like CVS or Walgreens or Rite Aid, or your doctor can give you a flu shot as well. Urgent care, you go to any urgent care, walk in, get a flu shot. It's covered by insurance. And so you should all get flu shot, flu vaccine, and you should get like pneumonia vaccine if you are older, or you have like diabetes, or if you're overweight, you have like conditions that make you kind of vulnerable. So it's not a bad idea to get a pneumonia vaccine because there's a lot of pneumonia strains, but or in a lot of ways to get pneumonia. So get the pneumonia vaccine that covers the most strains. Um, Yeah, I mean, you gotta take care of yourself. Make sure all your children got their vaccine shots, like measles, mumps, rubella, whooping cough. You know, make sure your children get all the vaccines. You need all the help that you can get before the flu season, because when the flu season hits, um, your children can die. No, I mean, I'm being really serious here. Children die every year from common cold and flu and strep throat and whooping cough and all the other things. They every year children die, but this year you have COVID-19, so there's a higher chance that children will not survive other things like cold, flu, whooping cough that they may normally survive had there not been COVID-19. So your children could die from other things, not just COVID-19. Um, because COVID-19 is going to be everywhere. So hospital rooms are going to be in short supply. Your children will not be able to get the attention that they would get if there was no global pandemic. So what that means is your children will have higher chance of dying, whatever they get, common cold, flu, whooping cough, strep throat, sinus infection, whatever, they have much higher chance of dying this flu season than if there were no global pandemic. Um, you know, it's possible that we may have 10 times more, 20 times more, 100 times more children die, maybe even 1,000 times more children die from other conditions like strep throat, croup, whooping cough, common cold, flu, sinus infection, because all of these can degenerate into pneumonia or um, ARDS, like respiratory failure, or infection that goes into septic shock, infection shock, and their organs can start failing and they could die, even if they don't have COVID, because they're not going to be able to get all the attention that they could get if the hospitals are not going to completely fill up and overflow, which will happen in the flu season. And that's everybody's expecting it. Dr. Fauci, Dr. Hahn, Dr. Redfield, Admiral Giroir, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, Dr. Gottlieb, everybody's expecting all the hospitals to fill up and overflow. Everybody. There isn't anybody who doesn't expect that. Um, I am saying, combined with proliferation of COVID-19 and hospitals filling up, we're going to have minimum 3 million Americans die. That's only 60,000 deaths per state, which is easily going to happen. If 60,000 people die in every state, we're going to have 3 million people die in America. That's definitely going to happen. There's like no doubt that that's going to happen. We're going to have minimum 3 million die. I'm predicting that we'll have probably more like 20 to 25 million people die. Because can you imagine, like, New York alone had over 30,000 deaths in 1 month in the first peak, March to May, but most of their death was like in 1 month. Um, and that was just at the tail end, April. I mean, April is like end of flu season. Um, Now New York City will have the complete flu season from September to like April. So you can expect hundreds of thousands of people to die in New York City alone. I'm predicting that in the state of New York, you're going to have over 1 million people die. Easy. I mean, you may even have 2 million people die. We don't know yet because we have not entered the flu season yet. But just like the temperature drops suddenly, that rate could happen suddenly, meaning like we have normally 1,000 deaths per day, and suddenly we're going to have like 5,000 deaths per day. And then suddenly we'll have 10,000 deaths per day. Then suddenly we have 20,000 deaths per day. That can happen. I've warned you, so don't say that nobody told you. CNN may not have told you because CNN is a liberal media, and you know I don't believe in the liberal media. Um, so I, Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th district, told you the truth, right? What CNN is not telling you the truth. Heerak Christian Kim is telling you the truth, right? Yeah, that's why you need to watch this show every day. CNN said there's probably going to be no one dying in summer. CNN was wrong. I don't believe the liberal media. I, Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th district, said thousands would die in the summer, and that's what happened. You're listening to African beats, African music, tribal music in the background. It's kind of nice, right? Yeah, it goes way back, hundreds of years, thousands of years, you know, African tribal music. Yeah, nice drum work. Yeah, the African music because I have top 5 Africa. South Africa is number 1 at 651,521 cases. That's only about like what, California, Florida, and Texas. As I said, you know, God is blessing Africa because Africa is very homophobic, transgender phobic. And they actually, many of the African countries will put you in prison for life or will execute you for homosexuality. So God likes that because God hates homosexuals. As you know from Romans chapter 1, what God did to Sodom and Gomorrah, God has shown that he hates homosexuals. You know, that's who God is. You know, leave him or take him. You know, that's who God is. That's God who hates homosexuals. He's always hated homosexuals since the beginning of time, as we see in Genesis. And he will always hate homosexuals. You know, that's who God is, right? God is saying yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He never changes. That's why Romans chapter 1 in New Testament shows God hating homosexuals. You know, God hates homosexuals. You know, that's just who he is. You leave him or take him, but that's who he is. That's who God is, right? You can't change God. God is who he is. He's immutable, meaning unchangeable. So you can't change God. He's going to always hate homosexuals. And Bible affirms that in New Testament and Old Testament. And because Africa arrests homosexuals by national law and executes them, many of the countries, God's blessing African countries by not executing Africans by COVID-19 in large numbers. Because as I've said, you know, there's a spiritual dimension to everything that is happening in the world. I don't believe in the liberal media, which says everything is just in the physical world. No, there's a spiritual dimension to everything in the world. You know, when you love a woman, you know, that's not physical. I mean, yeah, sex is physical. You express your love through sex, but what happens in your heart, the way you think about her, the way you care about her, the way you love her, that's not physical. It's just happening in your soul. And nobody can identify where that is in your physical body, right? Really. I mean, there are some chemical reactions, but sometimes there are not chemical reactions. For example, if you've been having sex with your wife for a long time, you may not be able to identify the chemical processes as readily as when you first fall in love with your wife and have sex for the first time with your wife, then there'll be like chemical charts, you know, are like broken. But you know, you've been having sex with your wife for 20 years. You know, you may not notice all this chemical stuff, you know, in your body anymore. You know, because you're used to your wife, and you know, chemical processes may not show as much, right? But your love is not really identifiable through chemistry, you know, really, because it's happening in your soul. Although sometimes it manifests itself because there are some areas of physical, like you know, when you have an erection, you could identify that. So you know, there are certain chemical processes you could examine and identify, but that's not what love is, right? It's just a symptom of love or manifestation of love. Yeah, so what that shows is there is a large part of yourself, like jealousy, anger, love. A lot of your emotions cannot be identified physically, right? It happens in your soul. Some people say it happens in your mind, but you can't really identify everything, all your emotions, um, through any kind of, examination, right? Because it's happening beyond the physical realm. So you could say that's in the spiritual realm, right? Uh, and so the spiritual world is very real. And when people say everything is just happening in the physical world, that's the kind of liberal lie, because it's the lie because you feel anger, love, jealousy in your heart, and that's not a physical process, right? It's happening in your spiritual side, your psychological side, which cannot be identified physically, really, or through any real examination, diagnostic examination. Although they try to figure out ways to identify it, because humans always try, right? But so spiritual dimension is important. So when things happen in the world, liberal progressives only want to look at the physical realm, right? When there's a wildfire, liberal progressives say it's a temperature problem, it's a global warming problem. They don't want to look at the spiritual side. Like they want to act like spiritual side doesn't exist, right? That's liberal progressive. A lot of leftists in the Democratic Party, they don't want to recognize that there is God. They don't want to recognize that there's a spiritual dimension, what the Hindus call karma, what the Buddhists call nirvana, what the Christians call the will of God. Liberal progressives do not want to identify these as being real, right? So they want to ignore it, but the problem is spiritual side is very real. Like when you love someone passionately, it consumes you. You look at a white wall, you see the face of the beautiful woman that you love, um, and that consumes you. That is far more real to you than anything physical that you own. Like if your child dies from flu or COVID or car accident when she's only 6 years old, the pain from your child's death is far more real than anything you own, your car, your house, your jewelry, your dresses. Um, and so you cannot say the spiritual dimension is fake. The pain you feel, the anguish you feel, these are not going to be treated by physical stuff. I mean, they could reduce some symptoms, but there are certain spiritually tied issues like anger, jealousy, hatred, love, um, desire. Some of these things can only be satisfied spiritually. Um, and so it's very real. And liberal media is not going to get you there. Liberal media is not going to help you survive pain of your child dying from COVID-19 in the next few weeks, next few months. Some of you will lose every one of your children. Like you have 3 children, you will see one child die. Several weeks later, you will see another child die. Several weeks after that, you're going to see your last child die, and you're going to have no children. Some of you are going to experience this. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to prepare you for what's coming. And some of you are going to lose every single one of your children in the flu season. Not all of them will die from COVID-19. Maybe one of your child will die from COVID-19. Another child will die from sinus infection that progresses and becomes septic shock and infection, septic shock, and die. You may have one other child who has a respiratory virus that progresses into respiratory failure and she dies from that, or maybe all of your children may die from COVID-19. Who knows? Um, but some of you will lose every single one of your children, and you and your husband may have to live rest of your dying days without any children, and maybe you are no longer able to have child, which means you're going to be lonely until you die. Um, and you have to live with the pain. How are you going to handle that pain? You think that the physical world's going to help you handle that pain? You see what I'm saying? There's a spiritual dimension to your pain that can only be satisfied through spiritual dimensions. And that's why at Georgetown University, we say cura personalis, treating the whole person. As you know, Georgetown University is a Catholic university. And as a Catholic university, Georgetown University officially recognizes the presence of God, and that's Holy Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Georgetown University is a Catholic university, so Georgetown University recognizes that the Holy Bible is the Word of God, the Old Testament and New Testament. And as a Catholic university, Georgetown University opposes homosexual and gay marriage officially, an abortion also, it opposes officially, right, as a Catholic university. That's what Catholicism is, right? That's what Christianity is. Christianity opposes homosexuality officially, Bible-centered Christianity, because the Bible says to oppose homosexuality, right? Christians just follow what the Bible is saying. There is a spiritual dimension to everything. Romans chapter 1 says, if you do not fight homosexuality, or if you allow homosexuality to proliferate, then God's going to send the wrath of God to the world. And the wrath of God, obviously, is like act of God. It could be hurricane, it could be wildfire, it could be famine, it could be flooding. We know from Noah's flood that sometimes God sends the flood as divine punishment. And sometimes it's disease and illness that God sends. So there's a spiritual dimension to COVID-19 that we cannot ignore. Liberal media wants you to think that COVID-19 is just a pure biological processes, but you know from your own experience, nothing is merely pure biological processes. Meaning, when you like a girl, it's not just purely physical. You see what I'm saying? In fact, many men who truly love a woman, they don't want to have sex with the woman before marriage because they want to save sex for after marriage, right? Men who truly love a woman are willing to wait until marriage to have sex with her because they truly love her. So what that shows is they don't care about the physical side as much as a deeper side, right? Because love is not just about sex, right? Sex is only a small part of love. And many men who truly love a woman are happy to wait until marriage to have sex with her. That's how women can know for sure if the man truly loves her. If the man is willing to wait to have sex with her and he doesn't leave, that means he truly loves her. But if the man is not willing to wait to have sex with her until marriage and he leaves because the woman doesn't give her sex, give him sex, then you know he doesn't truly love you. Like his love is very small, it's very limited. Obviously, there are a lot of people who who marry women they don't really love, because at the end of the day, some people marry for companionship because they're lonely. Some people marry women um, because it's time to get married. So I would say about 80% of the men who get married don't really love the woman completely. Uh, the truest love is always the first love. And generally that happens in your high school or college. right? That's the truest love. And any love after that is downhill, most cases. I mean, there are exceptions to the rule, but the first love is always the purest love. And that's why in the first love, a lot of people are willing to wait 2, 3 years and not have any sex because it's the purest love. It's not just about sex, desire, right? Um, and sometimes you have desire to have sex, but you wait because you love the girl, right? So if you're a woman who's smart, you won't be giving it up, so fast because you will never know if he really loves you, right? Because you may be desperate. Maybe you're a woman of divorce, and women of divorce tend to be insecure, so they're afraid to lose a guy, even a guy who doesn't love her, and they give them sex because of that, right? That's the problem with being a child of divorce, is you have these emotional insecurities, uh, fear of abandonment, because your father abandoned your wife, your mother, or your mother abandoned your husband, your father. So you see that growing up, so you fear abandonment, and it becomes internalized in your psyche. So children of divorce generally have psychological problems, and they know that. I'm not saying anything that's new. Um, yeah, that's why parents should not get divorced. It's trauma for the children. I mean, evidence-based research in mental health always emphasizes the trauma of divorce in children. I mean, that's unavoidable. And it's there, and that's why the worst thing you can do is get divorced. As I said, it's better to yell and fight and scream at each other and not get divorced because that shows the children that love can weather conflicts, right? That in and of itself is a teaching moment. Like your father and mother are fighting and yelling and screaming, but they don't get divorced. It gives a sense of comfort to the children who realize that love is so strong that even if you fight, you can still continue to love, right? That's why divorce is wrong, because it traumatizes the children. It psychologically derails their mental health, and they are insecure until they die. And that causes them to do certain things they would not normally do. Like women of divorce having sex and becoming like a whore, because of their insecurity. And obviously they should not whore themselves to men. But it becomes more difficult to be pure and respect your own body enough not to have sex with any guy who wants to use your body like a free whore to have free sex with. But if you're a child of divorce, it's difficult because you long for that male love that your dad didn't give you. There are different dimensions to it, like fear of abandonment, uh, daddy issues. I mean, these are all in evidence-based literature. Experts wrote about it, write about it, will continue to write about it because it's a real thing. Um, so we cannot ignore the spiritual dimensions that impact reality. And this is the proof, right? COVID-19 is a virus that infects anything in sight. But for some reason, it's not infecting Africans. So why not, right? Black people in America are getting infected. How come black people in Africa are not getting infected? You see what I'm saying? Because there's a spiritual dimension. God controls the viruses, just like God controls hurricanes and wildfires. Um, and so there is the meeting of the real world, of the physical world, and the spiritual world, right? You see the evidence in nature, and that's why Romans chapter 1 says, God's law is written in nature so that no one is without excuse, but God's wrath also comes through nature. Um, and so homosexuality and transgenderism, these are what God hates. God hates homosexuals. God hates transgender people. and God moves nature or the world uh, in response to human behavior that aligns with Romans chapter 1 or against Romans chapter 1. You see what I'm saying? There's a spiritual dimension that you cannot ignore. Because how do you explain this? And I'm asking you, scientists out there, I'm asking you, social scientists out there, I'm asking you, political science experts out there, how do you explain the fact that a virus that infects and kills people indiscriminately, for some reason, is not infecting people in Africa? It's not killing people in Africa when it's killing a lot of black people in America, when it's killing a lot of black people in England. How come it's not doing that in Africa? What's the explanation here? Um, so you need to come up with an answer, and I have an answer. And Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress. And my answer is let's go to the Bible and look at it from a spiritual angle. Um, and I'm sure Pope Francis and the Vatican and the Council of Bishops in Washington, D.C., National Council of Bishops, they all agree with me that there's a spiritual dimension to COVID-19. And I am pointing out here that it is homosexuality. Whereas homosexuality is legal in America, and as you know, I am encouraging you to vote against President Trump because he had Grinnell, who's a homosexual, former ambassador to Germany, who President Trump appointed as an interim National Security Council person in Washington, D.C., which is an evil action of President Trump in and of itself. And that's why I'm saying vote against President Trump. We need to vote against anyone who opposes Romans chapter 1, the Holy Bible, and the Holy Bible's perception and prescription for homosexuality. Obviously, you know, I'm going to side with Jesus. I'm not going to side with President Trump. President Trump is not my God. Jesus is my God. Yeah, so I encourage you to stand against President Trump as well and his support of gay rights. So he had Grinnell speak at Nevada, and I said, man, this is just evil. President Trump is being evil from a Christian perspective, pushing gay individual upon his supporters, trying to brainwash them to accept homosexuals is absolutely morally wrong, morally degenerate of President Trump to do. And that's why I'm calling on all Christians in America to vote against President Trump, write in a candidate who will oppose homosexuality. Obviously, don't vote for Joe Biden. He supports LGBTQ rights, gay rights. So you can't vote for President Trump or Joe Biden. It's unfortunate. I've been trying to encourage President Trump to oppose homosexuals and LGBTQ rights. And I told him, if he opposes LGBTQ rights, I will vote for you. I will encourage everyone to vote for you. But I'm not going to worship Trump. You should not worship Trump because 10 Commandments says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. If you worship Trump, then you're going to go to eternal damnation and hell. You got to worship Jesus. And worshiping Jesus means you vote against Donald Trump, who supports gay rights. That's not what God wants for America. That's not what God wants for your life. That's not what God wants for the world. So you must vote against President Trump. You must vote against Joe Biden. Write in a political candidate. Trust in God. That is the faith. Faith is believing what you cannot see. We don't just have two choices, Joe Biden and Donald Trump. There's always Derek Shlishit, as Israelis would say, third way. There's actually a political party in Israel that existed that is called Derek Shlishit, the third way, made up of Russian immigrants to Israel. One of my roommates in Israel was Russian immigrant, and he supported Derek Shlishit. Yeah, so I would encourage you to stand against President Trump. We stand with Jesus, we don't stand with President Trump. If President Trump stands with Jesus, we stand with Trump. You see how that works? If he's going to support LGBTQ rights, I stand against President Trump. I say this publicly to you, and I say this proudly to you because I am proud to be a Christian. I'm proud to be a follower of Jesus, and I'm not a follower of Trump if he's going to oppose Jesus, right? That's what makes me a follower of Jesus. So if you're going to be a follower of Jesus, you must oppose Trump and his support of gay rights. We must remember it was President Trump's Supreme Court appointee, Kavanaugh, who protected LGBTQ rights in the workplace that he should not have. It's against God's law. So you must stand against President Trump. It's very important for you and your children to vote against President Trump. Remember, the flu season is coming. There's a spiritual dimension, and God is looking at your ballot box. God knows who you're going to vote for. God knows who you voted for. God sees everything. So I don't see who you vote for, but God sees who you vote for. And God's going to take it out on you and your children because that's what God does. God has issues with not holding back punishment. God punishes people who oppose him, who are not loyal to Jesus. And voting for President Trump when he supports LGBTQ rights is betraying Jesus Christ like Judas Iscariot. Yes, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't believe in the liberal media. I believe in God. I believe in one nation under God. And when I say one nation under God, I mean Jesus Christ. And I'm not going to lie to you. You deserve to know the truth. Because if you vote for Donald Trump and all of your children die 1 month later, you deserve to know that could happen to you, right? And then you decide what to do. I'm going to tell you that can happen to you because God can take out wrath of God on you for voting for Donald Trump, who supports LGBTQ rights. You do what you want, but don't say that God did not warn you because God is fair, God is just, God is love. God loves you enough to warn you through Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress, what may happen to you and your children if you vote for Donald Trump. And obviously, I'm an expert theologian, so I'm basically explaining spiritual dimensions of what can happen in the physical realm based on your actions, using the historical accounts in the New Testament and the Old Testament and 2,000 years of Christian tradition. As I have explained to you, my major field in the PhD program in history at UCLA was history of Christianity from 0 AD until 1500, 1,500 years of Christian history. I studied and researched. So I can say with 100% confidence, if you vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump, who both support homosexuality, you will receive the wrath of God personally in your life and in your family. I can guarantee that without a single doubt. Now, obviously, that could mean different things for different people. But Romans chapter 1 is God's promise to you and your children and your family. So I would encourage you to take it seriously. I don't believe in the liberal media. They act like God doesn't exist. They act like Romans chapter 1 is like fake. No, it's real. CNN is fake news. The Bible is real. New Testament is real. I believe you deserve to know the truth. You do what you want. You're not a slave. You make your own choice, and then you will experience God's response based on what you do. If you keep his law, he's going to bless you. If you do break his law, then he's going to punish you. That's what God is. It's very simple. Christianity is very simple. You keep God's law, you get blessed. If you break God's law, you get punished. It's not that hard. That's why Christianity is great, because that's why we say God is love, because as long as you keep God's law, you're going to be blessed, right? I mean, what more can you want than that, right? Simplicity in the promise of God. It's not complex. right? It's very simple, right? So the way to blessing is very, 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 very simple in Christianity. All you have to do is follow God's law and you'll be blessed. I mean, how much simple can it get than that? So, I don't even have to tell you this, but I will tell you this because I don't want anybody in America, 330 million Americans, to say that God is unfair. God never warned them about what's going to happen if they vote for Donald Trump, who supports gay marriage or homosexual rights. I don't want you to say that to God. So I have a burden as a theologian. Theologian is someone who studied theology in the Bible, right? I have a burden because I know the truth, and I feel like you deserve to know the truth as well. There are theologians out there at Dallas Theological Seminary, Westminster Theological Seminary, Covenant Theological Seminary, Reformed Theological Seminary, Liberty University, Bob Jones University, Biola University, Conservative Baptist Theological Seminary, Southwest Baptist Seminary, Oral Roberts University. They know the truth, that they are too afraid of the world to tell you the truth. Yeah, that is tragic because they are neglecting their duty as a theologian. I'm an expert theologian and I'm not going to do that for three reasons. Number one, you deserve to know the truth because your life depends on it. Your children's life depends on it. When I say life, actual life, human life. And as you know, I march for life. I care about your life. I care about your children's life. That's why I created this show, COVID-19 Update by Heerak, so that you will not die physically, that your children will not die physically from COVID-19, right? That's the reason why I created this show on April 2nd, 2020, many months ago. And I am going to fight for your life, and that involves telling you the truth. I need to explain to you what God is going to do to you and your family if you do certain things, such as vote for Donald Trump. Because you may wonder, what will happen to me if I vote for Joe Biden? What will happen to me if I vote for Donald Trump, right? You probably have wondered about that. And some of you have found the answer by reading the Bible on your own. Some of you are too lazy to read the Bible, which is tragic. You should read the Bible. But I don't want anybody in America, 330 million Americans, to say God is not fair. Nobody warned us, right? Because I know God is fair. And every theologian in every seminary that believes in the Bible should warn you. If no theologian has warned you, they're not doing their job. Like Dallas theologians are not doing their job. Westminster Seminary theologians are not doing their job. Oral Roberts University theologians are not doing their job. Liberty University theologians are not doing their job. Bob Jones University theologians are not doing their job. Reformed Theological Seminary theologians are not doing their job. Covenant Theological Seminary theologians are not doing their job. Calvin Seminary professors are not doing their job. Fuller Theological Seminary professors are not doing their job. Right? Because that's their job, to let you know what God's going to do to you and your family if you do X, Y, and Z. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to let you know. I want you and your children to live. So I'm going to tell you from an expert theologian expertise what the Bible says and apply it to 21st century context of 2020 election. You vote for Donald Trump, who supports gay rights, your children and your parents, your family members will be punished by God in some way that God chooses. That could involve death by COVID. It could involve any kind of thing. God will choose. That's what the Bible applied to 21st context shows. So do not vote for Donald Trump if you do not want to have the wrath of God visit your family. President Trump had gay men, Granil, Republican, speak at Nevada election campaign, that's his choice. He made his decision to oppose Jesus Christ, oppose Romans chapter 1, oppose the Bible, and God will punish President Trump, spiritually speaking, for opposing Romans chapter 1. Let God do what he wants to do. That's his freedom, right? But don't worry about President Trump. Everybody should just worry about themselves. So you worry about yourself and your family. Do not vote for President Trump. It's a very, very important thing, unless he repents. He has now until the election day to repent and oppose homosexuality in public space, to oppose LGBTQ rights in public space and say it in no uncertain terms, and repent before God, then you could vote for him. But if he doesn't, you cannot vote for him. Well, you could vote for him, but you'll be punished by God. So I'm going to let you know what God will do so that you will not say, no one warned us, right? I'm sure there are true prophets in the United States who have warned their followers, because that's what Jeremiah said, right? Am I the only one who is speaking the truth of God? Are all the prophets of Israel corrupt and following Baal, the world? If you read the book of Jeremiah, and God said, no, there are thousands of true prophets that are speaking the truth. You just don't see them. So I'm sure there are true prophets of Jesus who are saying the truth, exactly what I'm telling you, in their church, in their setting. Yeah, because God has a lot of people who speak for him. But as a professional expert and theologian, I am not going to betray you. I am going to tell you exactly what God's going to do based on your actions. Yeah, that way there's no surprises, right? That way you know why things happen the way that happened, right? Yeah, so do what you want. You're not a slave. But just know that whatever decision you take, there will be a consequence, because God is real. God acts in history. God will act with you and your children and your family based on how you act. God is always reactive. God reacts to what you do. God is reactive. God is reactive, meaning if you obey God's law, God blesses you. If you disobey God's law, God will punish you. You see, God is reactive. God is reactive. So God reacts to what you do. So always remember that. Yeah, so that's the first reason, because I want you and your children to live. Second reason is because I am an expert theologian and because I train Christian pastors like in India and in other countries, it is my moral obligation to God to speak the truth, meaning I will be punished by God because God is reactive. If I don't speak the truth to you, God will punish me, and I fear God. I don't want to be punished by God, and that's why I'm going to tell you the truth. Because not because fear is a motivator for me. I fear God, and I know God can kill me from COVID. I know God can kill me through heart attack. I know God can kill me from stroke. I know God can kill me in thousands of different ways. I don't want to die before my time. I like to live till 100 if it's possible. Obviously, whatever God wants, I'll submit to God's will. But if I can help it, I'd like to live till be 100. And so I'm not going to do anything that's going to bring down the wrath of God on me, right? Because God is reactive. I need to do my job as a theologian, expert theologian. Job meaning my responsibility before God. Because if I don't, God's going to take his anger out on me. As I've explained to you, God has anger management issues. And I am serious when I say that. And I recognize it. I'm an expert theologian, so I understand God. And so because I know God is reactive, I am telling you the truth for my own butt, because I don't want God to punish me. So that's my second reason. Sometimes that reason is my primary reason, but ideally my primary reason is to save you and your children's lives. Um, and the third reason is from a ethical standpoint. As you know, I'm an intellectual, and as an intellectual, I have been pursuing truth. So my study of history is my effort to discover the truth in history. My expert research as a Jewish studies expert is to understand Jewish history in reality. You know, I want to understand what really happened. What the Germans say is was wirklich gewesen ist, what really was, was wirklich gewesen ist. And so I have an ethical duty as a historian to pursue truth and explain truth. So this is apart from my duty to God. It's an intellectual, ethical obligation that I feel. So I could say it's an intellectual ethics, right? Which is apart from my obligation to God. Yes, I'm not going to leave you hanging like some theologians who are afraid of the world. Because there are a lot of people who are afraid of the world. If you remember, St. Peter, he denied Jesus 3 times because he was afraid. And he was one of the apostles. He's like a cardinal in the Catholic Church, right? He's like being a Franklin Graham or Joel Osteen or John MacArthur or Tim Keller or John Piper, right? Or Tony Evans. He's like one of those. And it's kind of like, watching Tony Evans deny Jesus 3 times, right? St. Peter's denying Jesus 3 times. I mean, people can do that. Even people who have high position of influence and leadership in the Christian church, like Tony Evans or John Piper or Franklin Graham, Joel Osteen. These things happen in history, right? And they could be traitors like Judas Iscariot as well. I mean, you should not be surprised or shocked when that happens because the Bible gives us an example of leading leaders of Christian church betraying Jesus for 30 shekels of silver from the Jewish priests, right? So Jesus out for 30 shekels of silver. So that things like that happen in Christianity. Yeah, but I'm not going to betray you, and if I'm not going to betray Jesus. Yeah, I mean that's. I mean, my eternal life depends on it, and I want to go to eternity in heaven and spend it with Jesus. That's very important to me. Yeah, obviously, I'm running for U.S. Congress of Virginia's 8th District to bring America back to God, because I believe that illegalizing homosexuality is actually necessary to go back to normalcy. Like COVID-19 will not go away until we legalize homosexuality. And I want you to have a normal life. I want my family to have normal life. I'm not married, but I'm mom and dad. I want to see them. But right now, as you know, I'm a nurse at Virginia Hospital Center. I don't want my parents to get COVID and die, right? And so we don't know what's going to happen, right? If COVID-19 is forever, it's tragic because I want to see my parents in person. I want to see my sisters in person, but, it's, I'm not even married. Yeah, I've never been married in my life. I don't have children. I'm hoping God will send me a beautiful woman to marry who's Christian, obviously. Because Christians must marry Christians. But so I want to go back to normalcy, but it's up to God. And God's not going to give us normalcy until homosexuality is illegalized. Why do you think I'm running for U.S. Congress? Actually, I started running for U.S. Congress because I wanted to bring health equity in inner cities and rural areas. I still want that, but that was my primary reason why I ran for U.S. Congress in November. But when COVID-19 struck, and I realized it's fulfillment of God's promise in Romans 1, my priorities shifted. So my number one priority is illegalizing homosexuality. Why? Because I want you to live. You know, Romans chapter 1 is being fulfilled right now. Only way this is going to go away is to legalize homosexuality in fulfillment of Bible requirement. So obviously that's going to be my priority because I want you to live. I don't want you to die. Um, can you imagine if COVID-19 lasts this year and kills 3 million this year? Lasts next year, kills 3 million next year? Can you imagine it keep going on and on for years and years and years? Do you want that? I don't want that. So obviously, there's a spiritual dimension. So that's why the priority for me is to legalize homosexuality. I wish President Trump would do this, then this would all go away. But unfortunately, President Trump has been he's kind of like King Saul, right? King Saul was anointed by God, and the evil spirit entered him, and he is just raging and jealous and angry and doesn't want to do what God wants him to do. That's President Trump right now. It's unfortunate, but throughout history, a lot of people who've been selected by God going the wrong path and gets abandoned by God. So unless President Trump, repents, and you gotta expect him to be abandoned by God. Not just President Trump, but the whole Trump dynasty will be abandoned by God, and that's going to be tragic. Because you know what happened to King Saul's family, not just King Saul, but his whole family dynasty. So that's something that Trump dynasty can expect if he doesn't repent, and it doesn't look like he's going to repent. So I see the collapse of the whole Trump family. Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., they're all going to collapse. Watch. Because homosexuality is serious. And I say this as a theologian who knows the Bible, who studied the Bible for a long time. There is no way the Trump family is going to survive the wrath of God. God's going to punish Eric Trump. God's going to punish Donald Trump Jr. God's going to punish Tiffany Trump. God's going to punish Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner. The whole Kushner family will be specially punished by God. And, obviously Donald Trump's, whole dynasty, like his brothers and sisters, they'll all be punished by God. You will see what I mean. History is replete with examples of God's wrath. And, I wish I had time to tell you examples after examples of this kind of fulfillment of wrath of God. But we just don't have time. Maybe I can talk about it a little bit more on other shows in the future. So stay tuned, keep watching. But yeah, I predict complete collapse of the Trump dynasty, including Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, all the Kushners, because, guilt by association. And, Tiffany Trump, who else is there? I don't know the whole Trump dynasty. So they're all going to collapse. This homosexuality is very important to God. And God God collapses dynasties, So that's something that I think the Trump dynasty can expect if they do not oppose homosexuality. Well, you have freedom to do what you want, but God has freedom to respond. God is always reactive. I'm an expert of theology. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't believe in the liberal media. I think President Trump and Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Tiffany Trump, Ivanka Trump, the Kushners, they should all know what's going to happen if President Trump continues to support gay rights. Because I think it's only fair that they know, right? I mean, why should Eric Trump be cursed his whole life? Because of the sins of his father. The sins of his father visits generation after generation. That's the promise of the Bible. So obviously, patriarch going in the wrong way will doom generations, And it's unfortunate because President Trump can have COVID-19 go away just by opposing LGBTQ rights, making sure it becomes illegalized. We can go back to normalcy like in a matter of days. But no, he doesn't want to follow the Bible. Right? It's tragic. It's an absolute tragedy. We have a president who doesn't fear God. Yeah, it's tragic. I don't know how else to put it because I want to go back to normalcy. You want to go back to normalcy. It's not going to happen until God is satisfied. That's why we say one nation under God. That's why my motto is one, America back to God. Why do you think I go to Arlington GOP Republican committee meetings and talk about illegalizing homosexuality as an important thing? Why do you think I go to Alexandria City Republican committee meetings, monthly meetings, and talk about homosexuality as being evil? Why do you think I do that? Because I want everybody to survive. I want America to go back to normalcy. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, some people don't want to believe in God. What can you do? Like God hardened Pharaoh's heart. What are you going to do? What can you do? There's nothing to do, really. Some people are predestined to be abandoned by God, like King Saul. I mean, there's nothing to do. Um, you know, yeah, you have free choice, but if you keep practicing your free choice to promote homosexual politicians in your campaign rallies, obviously, you're spitting at the face of God. You don't fear God. Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah. So, second nation with the most number of cases is Egypt. And look, it's 101,340, that at 6%, 5,679 have died. There's a significant difference between South Africa and Egypt. The South Africa is one of these countries that's kind of shaky on homosexuality, so it makes logical sense from a spiritual angle. Obviously, there's an explanation in many different ways, but socialization and social activity doesn't differ that much between South Africa and Egypt, meaning the way people social distance and relate to each other, they don't differ that much among African nations right now. So there has to be a reason beyond the physical that explains the discrepancy. You see what I'm saying? Number 3 is Morocco, 90,324,000 cases, 2% death. So we have 1,648. That's like what, 2 days work in America. Ethiopia has 65,486. 2% are dying. 1,035. That's like less than what we have for 24 hours. Nigeria is a country of 100 million people. The country is 1/3 the size of the United States. And it has only 56,478 cases and death rate at 2%, 1,088 deaths. That's less than the death rate we had in 24 hours. So in 24 hours, we had 1,238 deaths. And so the confirmed cases are going up again. As I said this like in June. I said the third peak will start in September and will go to December, right? I mean, I'm right. So now we're beginning to pick up again. So you see we have 50,000 cases. So we went down to like 25,000 cases. Now we're spiking really back up again as the weather drops, temperature drops. Yeah, we have 6,603,509 cases. Deaths are at 195,727 deaths. Yeah. So the ladies there are from Poland. And as you know, I did a bachelor in Poland. I dated like more than a dozen women in like less than 10 days. Probably 2 dozen women. So there are only like 4 of them. So 4 of them are, all of them are in Warsaw, and all of them are Polish. They're really nice. I enjoy spending time with them. So thank you, ladies. I know you're watching from Poland. Hi there. Yeah, I want to go back to Poland, but it's like illegal for Americans to go to Europe now. No American can fly to Europe. Yes, this is COVID-19 global pandemic. You see why I want COVID-19 to go away? We need to give God what he wants if we want God to take COVID-19 away. Only God can take it away. Vaccines are not going to work because people don't even know what the strains are. There are over 40 different strains of COVID-19, and scientists have not even identified all the strains. So how are you going to find a vaccine when you don't even know what the strains are? And all the strains act differently. So each one of the strain has to have different vaccine. And that is if you can develop it. There's no guarantee you could even develop a vaccine for one strain, let alone 40 different strains. So how are you going to have vaccines that work? When pharmaceutical companies say they have vaccines that work, I'm like, you guys are liars. Because how did you develop the vaccines not knowing what the 40 different strains are? How did you develop a vaccine? Are you like using voodoo magic? Yeah, I don't believe any of the pharmaceutical companies just because I don't know what they're talking about. They don't even know all the 40 different strains of COVID-19. How are they going to develop the virus vaccine? How? Tell me, how? You have to identify the pathogen before you can neutralize the pathogen. And how are you going to find a vaccine when you don't even know what all the strains are? It doesn't make sense. I mean, you need to identify it first. Yeah, I'm just being rational here, and I'm using scientific method, right? Because God gave us reason, right? It's not like we're dumb. I mean, if you don't know what COVID-19 is, all those strains are, how are you going to find the vaccine? It's a very simple logic, right? Yeah. There are a lot of things happening now in the world, and I just want to bring some attention to a few things that are happening in America, in the American context, that kind of relates to the world. Um, so today's title is COVID-19 America. Is Israel peace deal good for America? Because, what's in it for us? Let's be honest here. We need to ask the question, what's in it for us, right? What's in it for us? What's in it for you, right? I mean, if it's good for us, then we should support it. If it's not good for us, we should not support it, right? What's in it for you? So that's why I'm asking this question. Is Israel-Arab peace still good for America? So the article that I have here is after UAE, United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain. Bahrain is another country. United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, they generally act together. My dad's been in these countries many, many times because my dad has been, my father, Reverend Manu Kim, who was senior pastor of First Korean Presbyterian Church in Philadelphia. He was the spiritual advisor to the Middle East Korean Missionaries Association that was comprised of all the Protestant Christian denominations, Presbyterian, Methodist, Baptist, Pentecostal, you name the denomination. Missionaries in all the Muslim countries, Arabic countries, Turkey. I mean, Israel is not Muslim country. It's Israel, Iran, Iraq, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain. So they used to meet once a year in one of these Middle Eastern countries. I mean, Turkey was included because it's Muslim. And then it became biannual. So my dad's been like a spiritual advisor to all the missionaries in these countries for over 20 years. So he's been to like these countries many times. Yeah. So I'm sure all the governments have records of my dad, yeah, because he's a high profile in Middle East. So Marisa Newman in the Times of Israel asked that question, right? Has that article after UAE Bahrain deal signed. Trump says 7 to 9 countries seek peace with Israel. It seems like President Trump thinks the Jewish nation making peace with Arabic nation is a good thing. Now, let's unpack this. Before going to that, let's look at what the little quote that we have from the article. Soon after historic Abraham Accords ceremony at the White House, U.S. President includes Saudi Arabia among those nations, also now ready to normalize ties with the Jewish state. So President Trump is assuming that peace deal between Jews and Arabs is a good thing, right? That's what the article seems to be saying. So before we answer the question in today's topic title, is Israel peace deal good for America? We need to first see what this peace deal is, right? And what it means. So obviously Netanyahu is smiling with his little diploma-looking thing, that's like a peace deal signed. And Arab nations, United Arab Emirates leader and Bahrain leader, they look happy with this, My question is this: is everybody happy? Are all the Jews in Israel happy with this deal? How about America? Many of you watching this show are in America and you're Jewish. Everybody watching this show around the world, obviously. And regardless of religion, Muslim, Jews, Christian, Hindu, atheist, Jain, Buddhist, a lot of people watch this show. I am the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century. I understand why you watch this show, because you need to know the truth. And I'm like the only one who's giving the truth, right? So I understand why you watch this show religiously, regardless of your religion, because you can trust me because I tell you the truth, right? you know, I'm telling you the truth. I'm not lying to you, so you can trust me. You may like me, you may not like me. I think most of you like me. You can trust me. That's one thing you're sure of. Yeah, that's why you protect me. I'm protected by Israel. I'm protected by a lot of people, a lot of different countries. They want the truth. They need the truth. That's why they go out of their way to protect me. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Are Jews in America happy with this deal? Like let's say you're Jewish. You're watching this show. Are you happy with this deal? Honestly, just think about it in your mind. You don't have to tell anybody. Are you happy with this deal? And also there are different groups, right, in Judaism. You have Orthodox Jews. You have the modern Orthodox Jews, which is Kushner family, and Jared Kushner is like modern Orthodox. And even with the modern Orthodox, you have more conservative, more liberal. You have the Reconstruction Judaism. You have the conservative Judaism. And within every Judaism group, there's liberal and conservative and moderate, right? You have the Reform Jewish groups. You have the secular Jews. You have the Jews, Jewish and Buddhist. Yeah, you have all kinds, right? And you have smaller groups which are like self-made up. You have Messianic Jews, who are Christians, but who doesn't want to call themselves Christian. So you have like different groups. So my question is, are the 12 million Jews, that's only 12 million Jews in the world, 12 million Jews in the world happy with what's going on? Well, that's one question. Now, obviously, it's not fair just to ask about the Jewish side. How about the Arabic side, the Muslim side? Are all the Muslim people in United Arab Emirates happy with this deal? Are they happy and celebrating and saying, you did the right thing, the leader of United Arab Emirates? Is that what's going on? How about Bahrain? Is everybody saying, oh, you did the right thing signing this treaty deal with Israel? Is that what everybody in Bahrain is saying now? Let's say there are 7 to 9 countries that are about to sign the deal with Israel. Are they all happy that their leader, Prince of Saudi Arabia, is about to sign a deal with Israel? I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I do know because I'm an expert of Jews. Um, I mean, I'm not really expert of Muslims, but you know, you do know that there has been Arab-Jewish conflict for over 2,000 years. Um, Historical conflicts don't die. Um, so, so what do I think? Because you probably want my professional expert opinion about what may happen. There are several things that can happen here, and I'll give you my expert opinion as a historian. The royal houses of Saudi Arabia can be slaughtered by fundamentalist Saudi Arabians who can use peace deal with Israel as an excuse to slaughter every single member of the Saudi royal family. And then you will have something like Iran um, emerge in Saudi Arabia and other Arabic nations in the Middle East. Because there have been rhetoric against Israel in every Arab nation for decades since the founding of Israel. And for leaders to say, oh, we're no longer enemies, but we're friends, it's not going to convince everybody. It may not convince the majority. So I'm expecting slaughter of the royal houses of Saudi Arabia by fundamentalists in Saudi Arabia, and something like the Islamic Republic of Iran emerging in Saudi Arabia, and all over the Middle East. That's what I'm predicting. Obviously, only 2 countries have just signed the peace decree. So we have, you know, things can happen next week. Things can happen 1 month from now. Things can happen in a few months from now, from a year from now. But I think that's something we can expect. Violence and fundamentalist Islam rising, using this peace deal as an excuse. Because people tend to be conservative in every country, you know, the working class. Yeah, so I expect Middle East to go into violence and turmoil, and the royal families to be slaughtered, the royal houses that signed peace deal with Israel to be slaughtered. That's what I'm expecting. I'm hoping I'm going to be wrong, but I don't think so. We've seen what happened to Iran. It can happen everywhere in the Middle East. And I think it will be fulfillment of the prophecy of Revelation. I see the signing today as part of the prophetic fulfillment in Book of Revelation. So why don't you go and read Book of Revelation and see what I mean by that? And I think Pat Robertson would agree with me. And most of the Assemblies of God ministers would agree with me that the peace deal between Israel and Arab countries is a bad thing. Yeah, I think it's a bad thing because I don't think it's good for America if Muslim nations in the Middle East become destabilized with Muslim fundamentalists rising to the top and controlling all the wealth, oil wealth, and power of the Middle East, because they could easily acquire nuclear weapons, and things can happen really fast. I don't think it's a good thing. So I guess that answers the question: is Israel-Arab peace still good for America? I'll say no. I'm 100% sure that it's not a good thing. So I think, you know, President Trump has bad advisors. Whoever gave him the advice to make peace between Israel and Arab nations, they gave him the worst advice possible. And unfortunately, it's going to destabilize the region. And as you know, Book of Revelation say Gentile armies will surround Israel and destroy it. You can easily see that happening with fundamentalist Islam taking over Arab nations. You know, that'll be their priority. Yeah, so, you know, I expect that to happen because of the peace treaties that are being signed. As I've explained to you before, Japan and Korea signed the peace treaty in 1905. This is historic. Two royal houses, Royal House of Japan and Royal House of Korea, signed the peace treaty. And as a sign of good gesture, a gesture of peace and truce, the Queen of Korea, last in the line of Yi dynasty, which was the most powerful dynasty in Korea, invited the generals, or agreed to have the generals of Japan stay in Korea, and the general killed the queen in the palace. And that's when Korea became occupied by Japan, and for 35 years, we became enslaved to Japan. Japan outlawed the Korean language. Every Korean school required Japanese education, 100% in Japanese. Japan tried to wipe out Korean culture, history, and language. They failed. I do need to drink some soda. So that's why you could get COVID when you take the mask off like that to drink water. I mean, you know, maybe you could put a straw in there. But so the peace treaty is not as simple as it seems. And ironically, or interestingly, I saw Frozen 2, which I have to say I was really disappointed by. Because I really liked Frozen 1, and the songs were really good in Frozen 1, but the songs were really bad in Frozen 2. I really did not like any of the songs in Frozen 2. And what's up with the morbid death theme in Frozen 2? Jeez, I'm like, this is the most depressing animated movie I've seen in my life, you know? What's happening with Disney, you know? But if you see Frozen 2, and I encourage you to see Frozen 2, even though the movie is not that good, some scenes are good. The reason I tell you to see Frozen 2, if you can, is because I think it highlights what I'm saying. What happened to South Korea happened in Frozen 2. Yes, yes. It's not just Korea. I don't know if the person who made Frozen 2 used Korean history as a model, and maybe they copied from Korean history. I don't know. I don't know the history of who wrote the script, who, you know, maybe it was a Korean American who wrote the script, or maybe somebody stole it from Korean American, because this is part of Korean history, right? It strangely resembles Korean history. So two nations, they make alliances, and one of the nations plot to use the truce, the alliance, the peace deal, like signed today between Israel and Arab nations. One of the nations in Frozen 2, the humans, use it to destroy the other nation. Yes. Watch Frozen 2. Alliances are sometimes prelude to slaughter or takeover of the country, like what happened to Korea with Japan. And Japan made it sound like, oh, we're going to live together in perfect harmony and peace. Let's call this East Asia prosperity sphere. And Korean queen, who was a Yi dynasty queen, and Yi dynasty was intellectual and emphasized wisdom and harmony, you know, kind of progressivism. So the Yi dynasty queen said, yeah, how nice it would be if all of us got together and got along. There's no more wars, and we become rich as Korea, you become rich as Japan. Let's help each other to become rich. Let's make this peace agreement. And naive. So I see, like, obviously President Trump has political capital to gain by making it seem like he's peacemaker, peace broker, make a deal, let's make a deal. But what's in it for Israel? What's in it for United Arab Emirates? What's in it for Bahrain? That's the question basically asking themselves. And, obviously I have Korean history to draw from. And also I have what? Example of frozen two to draw from. Not only that, what happened to the Indian nations when they made peace agreement with us? Yeah, I mean, I have American history to draw from. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so I mean, it's probably not good for Israel. It's probably not good for United Arab Emirates. It's probably not good for Bahrain. I don't know how many billions of dollars President Trump promised Israel and Bahrain and United Arab Emirates. Money can blind you. I don't know. Maybe he didn't promise them anything. I think he probably did promise something. As they say, everybody has a price, right? Hopefully you don't have a price. 30 shekels of silver will get you in hell. And 30 shekels of silver may be different for everybody. But anyway, the saying is everybody has a price. I don't agree with that. I don't think everybody has a price. Jesus did not have a price. But yeah, I think this is a bad deal. I disagree with this deal. I think it's better when Israel and Arabic nations are separate. It's better for us. Obviously, what's in it for us? Because it keeps the Islamic fundamentalists down in the ground, right? Because you have like 100% of the Muslim population living in Saudi Arabia, most of whom hate Israel. They're going to support the Saudi royal family as long as there's a conflict between Israel and Arab nations. There's an us versus them conflict that Saudi Arabia can manipulate to keep the people supporting them. Now, if you make agreement with Israel, what it does is it confuses 100% of the population. Maybe a very few minority, 1 to 2% will support it, but 95% or more will not like it. So their discontentment can be manipulated by less than 1% of the terrorists in the bottom, who can persuade the 95% to slaughter the Saudi Arabia royal house, all of them, because they now have 95% of the people behind them. So, yeah, so I mean, it's just a big mistake, I think. I think keeping the Jewish state and Arabic state separate is in our interest in order to control the Islamic terrorists, right? We need the Saudi royal house in place and people to be kind of controlled. You take away the infrastructure that controls them, social infrastructure that controls them, and the current status quo, you destabilize the region. Now you'll see what I mean. It will start happening in the weeks to come, months to come. You will see. Because history is fairly simple. There are three factors that control history: legitimacy, stability, and loyalty. And all of these hinges on an us versus them conflict. You pull out us versus them conflict, people who you used to be loyal because they needed you in an us versus conflict no longer need you. And you have the support of 95% of the people who will go along with you as long as you create this us versus them conflict, thereby solidifying the us. But once you start making peace deals with them, people not only get confused, they will divest their loyalty from you, either passively or actively, and then your whole royal house comes into jeopardy. And that's going to happen. What else is happening today? As you know, the fires are still continuing, killing people, burning property. So the article today by Leah Crow on ABC News, twin disasters, how the West Coast fires might impact the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah, so the byline there, when we have public health concerns from wildfires to hurricanes, we worry about worsening spread of the virus. That's Dr. Galiatsatos from Johns Hopkins Health, one of the MedStar hospitals. I actually was offered interviews by 3 different units by that Johns Hopkins Hospital to be a nurse. But as you know, I'm a Virginia Hospital Center, so I told them I'm a Virginia Hospital Center, so sorry. But they really wanted me, like 3 different departments. One was like, what was it? Cardiac catheter, like cardiac step-down unit. One was an oncology unit. One was surgery, surgical nursing. Yeah, Johns Hopkins really wants me. Baltimore, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. Oh, actually, that I think he's yeah. I think it's that hospital. Yeah, Johns Hopkins. Yeah. But anyway, Virginia Hospital Center is so lucky to have me because I'm really good. I'm really amazingly good at what I do. I'm like an amazing nurse. So they're really lucky to have me there. Everybody wants me, I actually got an email from Innova Fairfax Hospital trying to recruit me. They're like, they want to interview me for what is that? A cardiac unit. Yeah, Innova Fairfax Hospital in Falls Church, in Fairfax County. Yeah, I mean, I'm wanted everywhere. I'm still getting recruited now. I just got that email from Innova Fairfax Hospital yesterday, trying to recruit me to their hospital. Yeah, I'm really good at what I do. I'm a really good nurse, Yeah, so third article, Sally could be the first hurricane to hit Alabama in 16 years. Yeah, so we have this hurricane that's slowly crawling toward Alabama, which is expected to hit tomorrow, Wednesday. And this article is by Brendan Miller, CNN. And it says, if Sally makes landfall in Alabama, it will be the first hurricane to make landfall in the state since Hurricane Ivan the Terrible, 2004. Yeah, so I don't know, Alabama maybe in for a shock, you know. But the problem, that is being pointed out by Leah Crow of ABC News is, it's going to spread COVID-19. We saw what happened to Texas after the last hurricane. Death figures skyrocketed, cases skyrocketed. So we saw that in Texas, like how hurricane impacts COVID-19 spread. So Leah is, absolutely right. We just love this, African tribal music. My cousin is a missionary to Sierra Leone. He's been a missionary there for decades. Like, after seminary and getting ordained and getting married, he took off for Sierra Leone, and he's been there all his life. Yeah, and he's gonna die there, he says. He loves Africa. And civil war started in Sierra Leone, so he had to take his whole family and flee to. And Korean missionaries, they don't go home when there's a civil war. It's not like wimpy, wussy American missionaries. Korean missions, they're like, you went there to serve Jesus. There's a civil war. They still need Jesus. You stay there. Or you go to another part of Africa if you don't want to die. But you're not going to leave Africa. You went to Africa as a missionary. You're going to die in Africa. That's what the Korean churches are like. So missionaries of American churches, American mission boards pull back missionaries when there's danger to save missionary lives. Korean missionary boards say, oh, there's a war going on. They still need Jesus. You will still share Jesus there. They don't pull you back in Korea. Yeah. Yeah. I respect my cousin. I have to say, think about it, You go as a missionary, there's nothing there, right? You're there trying to plant churches in like villages. Some don't even have electricity. And you're just suffering, right? And you have your children, they have like children, and you're trying to raise them. And the civil war breaks out, people are killing each other. And your mission board is like, hey, you're a missionary to Africa, you're gonna stay in Africa, don't come out of Africa. So he moves from Sierra Leone to Ivory Coast. He goes to Ivory Coast and they only speak French. He has to learn French. And he's evangelizing in Ivory Coast, sharing the gospel, setting up churches. And he has these children just tagging along, his wife. And then Ivory Coast starts to have a civil war, and so he goes back to, to Sierra Leone, and the civil war there kind of died down. And then another civil war breaks out. I mean, geez, can you imagine how horrific that is? And the missionary board in Korea refuses to bring you back. They're like, your life is in God's hands. But there are African American, not African American, but American missionaries. There may be African American missionaries, but the story that I'm telling about is American missionaries. There are American missionaries who risk their own lives on their own volition. And that was Reverend Bruce Hunt of Orthodox Presbyterian Church. He went as a missionary to Korea. He was Japanese occupation. He went to prison, Japanese prison, because he refused to worship the Shinto shrine, bow down to the Japanese emperor as God. Because he's like 10 Commandments says, don't bow down to anybody, don't make yourself an idol. And so he went to prison. So he didn't come back to America. He stayed in Korea, suffered with Korean Christians. So there are white Christian missionaries who've done that. There may also be black Christian missionaries. I don't know of a single example of a black Christian missionary who's done that, but I know many examples of white Christian missionaries who have stayed behind and gone to prison or died sharing the gospel. So I have like high respect for white Christian missionaries because we've seen examples of that in Korea. I don't know any black missionaries who risked their life for Jesus and died or gone to prison for Jesus, black American missionaries. I don't know a single example. So email me and let me know if you know examples because I love to hear it. But I know a lot of white missionaries who've done that, so I have high respect for white Christian missionaries. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them. Yeah, things are bad in America. Obviously, I am working hard to make life better for you, to save your life and your children's lives because I march for your life. Yeah, so tune into this show every day. Tune in tomorrow. It's a daily show. And vote for me on November 3rd, 2020. So I can help you. You help me, I help you, right? We help each other. You fight for me, I fight for you. Yeah, as you know, you need me to fight for you, right? I mean, everybody's lying to you. Jeez, how sucky is that? Everybody's lying to you. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Obviously, I'm not going to lie to you, and I don't believe the liberal media. I'm going to tell you the truth. Yeah. So yeah. So tune in tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Um, and if you get COVID-19 or, if you get heart attack or stroke, come to Virginia Hospital Center. Maybe you'll see me. I'll take care of you. And other nurses at Virginia Hospital Center, they're really nice. So, that they'll take good care of you even if you don't have me. So, yeah. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I hope that you will be well and that your family will be well too. Bye.